clarify what you were saying, though, is that these countries are part of the UN, that this particular court, is it because it's an NGO? I mean, I'm trying to get the relationship of why it means
Oh, yeah.
that suddenly these rulings are going to be they're opt-in whether they like it or not because they're part of the UN. And in
Okay.
order to get out of the ruling, they have to back out of the UN altogether. So clarify that for me.
Yes, good one. Yeah, it's not about UN or not UN. Here's the thing. The binding international laws, like the Human Rights, Basic Declaration of Human Rights, that's General Assembly, that's binding law. All the countries have no choice; they're bound by it. They can't opt out. So the court was formed based on statutory provisions, sections of those binding laws that give authority to a court of international law. And it's hard to find them, and they're scattered in multiple conventions. And when you find all the pieces and string them all together, it turns out there's a complex set of criteria that if a court meets X, Y, and Z and a bunch of other criteria, it does have the statutory authority to exercise jurisdiction, universal jurisdiction, over all countries and their governments with complete judiciary authority and immunity. And that's it. So all the court had to do was follow the science of how do we meet all these criteria. This touches on your UN question. There's contradicting criteria in there. It was almost set up that you could do an international court, but they made a contradiction, and here it is. First, you have to have governmental license, so you have to be backed by a government. But second, you have to be able to prove that you're non-governmental. It's an oxymoron. Almost by definition, it can't be done. It's mission impossible. Well, the lawyers asked me about it, and I said, I like Mission Impossible. I do all kinds of Mission Impossible. So we thought about it, and we said, okay, well, what if we do this? What if we get UN NGO status? Now, it doesn't mean that you're under the UN, right? All it means is that you have gotten the UN to accept and register your nonprofit institution as an NGO. What does that mean? Non-governmental organization. So by getting it registered and accepted by the UN as non-governmental, we met the part that, yes, it's not governmental, but the Egyptian government, the Ministry of Justice and some other ministries, gave it governmental license to be a court of law. Now, the independence here is important. So what we did is we negotiated with the Egyptian government so that the license is permanent and irrevocable. So Egypt said forever, once and for all, forever, irrevocable, we're giving you a license as an international court of law. The license says that it's for international jurisdiction and that it's non-governmental court. So it's a governmental license to be a non-governmental court, and we can prove that not only from the license, but from the fact that the UN accepted this as a non-governmental organization. So now, thanks to this gift, and it's a permanent, irrevocable gift by the Egyptian government, this is a non-governmental court that no government in the planet can say a word to, and it can't be blackmailed with losing its license. Okay. So now it's an animal all its own.
Right.
The lion is out of the cage now.
Okay, and it has NGO status as well, correct?
Yes, and that is no influence at all of any UN on the organization. It's the opposite. When you have NGO status, the NGO has influence. At least it has participation in the UN event. So the university, as the host NGO, has delegates and can assign them UN delegate cards and send them to Geneva and New York to lobby for human rights issues. And so they're going to have the judges of the court holding those delegate cards going into Geneva and New York to wake up the other countries sitting around the General Assembly saying, how would you like to assert your national sovereignty and assert your human rights?